Okay, folks, let's get started. Good morning. My name is Hannah Rhodes, and I'm a consumer watchdog advocate with US PIRG Education Fund. We're an independent, nonpartisan group that works for consumers in the public interest. Through research, public education, and outreach, we serve as counterweights to the influence of powerful special interests that threaten our health, safety, or well-being. Today, we are releasing our 36th annual Trouble in Toyland report. We are joined by Dr. Jerry Rose, an emergency medicine pediatrician at University Hospital's Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital in Cleveland, Jennifer Gibbons, a senior vice president at the Toy Association, and Dave Gowda, assistant director of Kids in Danger. Thank you for being here. Over the past 35 years, the Trouble in Toyland report has looked at trends to determine the potential dangers facing our children each holiday season. Our annual report has led to more than 150 recalls of unsafe toys and other important regulatory action. This year, we focus on 7 issues, perhaps most notably counterfeit and knockoff toys. While not every counterfeit or knockoff toy may be dangerous, it should alarm parents that they could buy a product that has not undergone proper safety testing. Next slide, please. For example, just last month, US Customs and Border Protection officials in Baltimore said toys from China included 295 packages of Lagori 7 Stones, a popular children's game. Lab tests by the US Consumer Product Safety Commission showed the toys were coated in chemicals that exceeded safe levels for consumers, including lead, cadmium, and barium. Operation Holiday Hoax is a joint effort involving government agencies, law enforcement, and international partners that works to prevent counterfeit goods from entering the market. In November 2019, one operation led to the seizure of 155,000 suspected counterfeit toys, some of which tested positive for lead. Toxic chemicals in toys can be incredibly dangerous because they are not visible to you and me. Most parents and caregivers do not have access to lab testing, so lead and other unsafe chemicals can go undetected. Making matters worse, when you can't see a product before you buy it, there's a greater chance you'll end up with a dangerous toy, whether it's a counterfeit, knockoff, or mislabeled product. That's more likely with online purchases, and with the persistence of the COVID-19 pandemic since last holiday season and correlated supply chain issues, we expect even more Americans will opt not to shop in person and instead shop online this year. Next slide, please. Also online, you may unknowingly buy recalled toys. On eBay, we found listings for recalled toys that didn't mention the recall or denote whether the toy had been fixed so that it was legal to resell. For example, a manufacturer might recall a toy because the battery was overheating. The manufacturer could send customers a new battery, allowing the owner to resell the item legally. But in the examples we found online, it was unclear if that happened. Parents can learn more about if a toy has been recalled at saferproducts.gov. Next slide, please. This year's Trouble in Toyland also emphasizes some recurring concerns, including the rise of smart toys. Not every smart toy is bad, but even the slightest risk to a child's privacy and safety is concerning. PIRG Education Fund toy researchers purchased the Singing Machine, a children's karaoke machine, to test the Bluetooth connection. We found that if the Singing Machine is turned on, anyone can connect to it without a PIN code or other verification. We also tested how far a person could be from the Singing Machine and still connect via Bluetooth. One of our researchers went outside her home, yet was able to connect from the Singing Machine from 30 feet away. A bad actor could break into the device and play anything from an explicit song to a voice recording telling the child to come outside. The video shows how you can connect via Bluetooth without a PIN code or other verification. Another toy hazard to be on the watch for this holiday season is small parts. Small parts can be the toy itself, a game piece, or even a broken part of a toy. Toys meant for children's ages 2 and younger cannot include small parts, and toys for children's ages 3 to 6 must include a warning label if they have small parts. We searched toys for children age 2 on Amazon and looked at the first 20 recommendations. The good news? 6 of those toy listings included the appropriate small parts warning labels. The bad news? Toys for 2-year-olds aren't supposed to have any small parts. Even worse, 10 of those first 20 listings had conflicting age descriptions, forcing consumers to try to figure it out on their own. The lesson learned: parents should be mindful when searching for toys for a young child. What pops up first online might not be age appropriate. Mislabelings can be very common in online toy listings, so it's important to read through the entire product description before purchasing anything. Next slide, please. Small metal objects also pose recurring toy safety concerns. High-powered magnets, often advertised as desk toys, can lead to serious injury or be fatal if swallowed. Zen Magnets recalled 10 million high-powered magnets earlier this year. It was an important step forward, but high-powered magnets are still for sale. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that any household with children not have any high-powered magnets in the home. In addition, be careful about those little flat round batteries, known as watch, button, or coin batteries that power some toys. If swallowed, they can damage the esophagus and burn holes inside the body. The video below demonstrates how high-powered magnets can work their way through the digestive tract and can pull together, causing serious injuries. To sum it up, with the pandemic and supply chain problems prompting more online shopping, it's more important than ever for gift buyers to recognize potential safety hazards for the children on their holiday lists. Consumers should pay special attention to warning labels, research the legitimacy of a toy, and avoid dangerous items such as high-powered magnets. Parents can learn more about how to identify counterfeit toys in our consumer tip guide on US PIRG Education Fund. After our panelists speak, we will have a question and answer section. For those with questions, make sure to submit them using the Q&A button. Thank you, and I will give the floor to Dr. Jerry Rose.
Good morning, everyone. As Hannah mentioned, my name is Jerry Rose. I'm a pediatric emergency physician at Rainbow Babies and Children's in Cleveland, Ohio. And for over 15 years, I've had the privilege of partnering with kids and families in a busy peds emergency department. As a peds specialist, I recognize how important play is to childhood and all of the benefits for health and development. But as an emergency physician, I also know the dangers and the injuries that can result from toys when they're dangerous or used in the wrong way. And so I'm just delighted to be part of this discussion today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Rose. To learn a little bit more about your experience, we have some questions for you. Our first question is, can you walk us through the medical process if a child were to be admitted for a suspected button battery ingestion?
Yes, so button batteries and the lithium coin batteries, these are something that we see pretty commonly in the peds emergency department and can definitely be life-threatening to children. So if anytime there is a suspicion that a child may have ingested a button or a coin battery, it is imperative that the family seek emergency attention right away. So immediately we would be obtaining x-rays to identify where the battery is. And Hannah, like you mentioned, anytime a button battery is in the esophagus, it can cause serious burns and life-threatening injury within a matter of a couple of hours. So in these cases, we are immediately calling for our surgical specialists to take that child to an operating room to remove those batteries. So, you know, obviously this is a very serious situation and something very scary for children and families to go through.
That does sound very scary for children and their families. Kind of on a similar note, have you treated high-powered magnet ingestions in the past? Are young children the only group affected?
Yes, I have had cases involving, personally, involving the high-powered magnets. One that particularly comes to mind that was very unfortunate was not in a small child. It was actually in an adolescent child who was about 12 years old. And he and his friends, for some reason, they were playing and he ingested a few high-powered magnets. Because he was older, he was embarrassed to reveal that to his parents and started having pain in his abdomen and vomiting, and came in actually looking, you know, pretty ill, having a lot of abdominal pain. And we were very surprised when we discovered that he had high-powered magnets sticking to one another in his bowel. Unfortunately, he required surgery and a number of days in the hospital healing from that. So it's not just small children always. There have been cases where older children use them to mimic like a tongue piercing or things like that. So these are really dangerous and can cause serious damage.
Yeah, that also sounds like a very scary experience for young children, but as well as adolescents.
Mhm.
Our next question is, what are the most common injuries related to toys that are seen in hospitals?
Yeah, so I think obviously toys with small parts or toys that break carry a risk of choking or aspiration of those parts. We do see situations like this every year where unfortunately a child either chokes on a small part or a part breaks and leads to choking or aspiration. The other more common things we see, like I've already discussed, are ingestion of the small button batteries or the lithium coin batteries. These can be in toys as well as things that may not be toys, but children play with them, like key fobs or remote controls that kids can somehow get the batteries out of and ingest. So that's pretty common. The other thing more commonly we see in older children are motorized toys. So things like the battery powered scooters or hoverboards, skateboards, things like that. And unfortunately, when children use those, they're at risk to fall. And so they may come in with head injuries or injuries to their arms or legs from falling.
What other safety advice should parents be aware of when giving their children toys?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I can't emphasize enough that looking at the label, making sure that toys that small children are playing with are appropriate for their age and don't have small parts that could be choked on or aspirated. One good rule of thumb that we tell families at home is you can take a toilet paper tube that you have in your house, and if there's a piece that fits inside there, it's not appropriate for a small child under 3. So that's just a good at-home way to determine if it's safe or not. The other thing I would say, toys for infants who are, still in the baby phase, plush toys like stuffed animals or things with ribbons or strings should never be placed in the sleep environment, because there have been cases where an infant could become suffocated in those toys, and that is always tragic, and we want to avoid any cases of that happening.
Thank you, Dr. Rose, for being here. Our next panelist is Jennifer Gibbons, a Senior Vice President at the Toy Association.
Hi, again, Jennifer Gibbons. I'm Senior Vice President for Government Affairs at the Toy Association, where I work on product safety and issues related to counterfeit products. Safety is a top priority for both the association and our over roughly 900 member companies, which include the manufacturers, retailers, distributors, and all of the other companies who are involved in designing and bringing toys to children. All toys that are sold in the US are supposed to be certified as compliant with over 100 federal safety standards and tests. What we have seen is that some of the online marketplaces have been a way for bad actors out there to get around this safety testing and are able to offer these counterfeit and often unsafe products directly to consumers. So we're very happy to be here today to continue to highlight this issue. It is something that we've been working on both to educate consumers, and we do have our tips for spotting counterfeits at playsafe.org. And we've also been working with lawmakers to hopefully pass some better regulation of online marketplaces and weed out these bad actors and these unsafe products.
We appreciate you being here, Jennifer. You did just touch on this, but can you give us a little bit more information about what tips consumers can use to identify counterfeit toys online?
Sure. I mean, so there's, definitely when you are looking at a listing for a product, if the price doesn't seem right, if it's too good to be true, we all like a good deal, but you can guarantee that, the counterfeiters are not using the same, level of material. They're not doing the same safety testing, so they can offer products at a, much better price point than the legitimate manufacturers can. So looking at the price, if a deal is too good to be true, it probably is. If a listing has a lot of grammatical errors, if the photos aren't matching up, that could be another sign. You can always double check by visiting a brand's website. So, if you are looking to buy a building set and it comes in 48 pieces, and then you visit the manufacturer's, the brand's website, and they don't actually sell a 48-piece set, that would be a very strong indication that that's a fake or counterfeit product. And, it's very unfortunate that the burden is on consumers right now to have to go out there and do this research, but that is the state of things, and we want to make sure that people are aware and are looking out for it.
Those are some great safety tips. I really love the saying, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Can you share an example of a counterfeit toy identified and what safety risks this toy had?
Well, there's a variety of reasons that, counterfeit products can be unsafe. I think, Dr. Rose definitely touched on a big one, which is small parts. More often than not, as I mentioned, a counterfeit product is not made, with the same grade of materials, which legitimate products are, and it's not safety tested. So if that product breaks easily, you now have a small part hazard for children. I think the other big things that we see would be products which are not meeting toy safety standards related to batteries, magnets, and those are huge. Obviously, not meeting those safety standards is a very clear hazard to children, and so we want to make sure that parents are aware of that.
Absolutely. Are only the most popular toys being counterfeited?
I think that's another unfortunate thing. I mean, we've always seen, knockoffs of the hot toy for the season. And now the problem has just grown exponentially to where there's a knockoff of pretty much every toy out there. It's not just the hot toys anymore, which means that consumers need to be even more careful when they are shopping online, because it isn't just the hot toy anymore.
Thank you, Jennifer. We really appreciate you being here. Up next is our final panelist. For those with questions, make sure to submit them using our Q&A button. I give the floor to Dave Gowda, Assistant Director of Kids in Danger.
Thanks, Hannah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Gowda, and I'm the Assistant Director of Kids in Danger. Thank you to US PIRG for having us today and for continuing to educate parents and consumers about unsafe toys. KID is a nonprofit dedicated to protecting children by fighting for product safety. KID's mission is to save lives by enhancing transparency and accountability through safer product development, better education, and stronger advocacy for children. You can learn more about us and sign up for a monthly children's product safety newsletter at kidsindanger.org. And I'm happy to be here today to answer your question.
Thank you for being here. Our first question is, what do you suggest parents can do to protect their children from unsafe toys?
Yeah, so I'll give you a few tips. So parents should check for age labels on toys before purchasing them. Avoid toys that have battery compartments that easily open without the use of a tool to avoid battery ingestion. And since it's hard to get an idea of how sturdy or well made a toy is online, read reviews looking for reports of breakage or sharp edges. And to prevent children from choking on small parts of toys, you can do the toilet paper roll test right at home, as Dr. Rose mentioned. If you just have a toilet paper roll, if a toy or a part of a toy fits inside of the roll, then it's not suitable for children under 3.
Where can parents learn about toy recalls?
Yeah, so parents can check for recalled toys and other children's products at the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission's website at cpsc.gov/recalls. You can also report any unsafe children's product or view other incident reports at CPSC's public database at saferproducts.gov. To get notified of product recalls that are products that are newly recalled, you can subscribe to CPSC's recall listserv and sign up for Kids' monthly newsletter at kidsendanger.org to get our recall digest, which has a list of children's products that have been recalled in the past month. And it includes pictures and also links to the press releases, which gives you the contact info for the company to remedy that recall.
Are there ways for the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission and recalling companies to strengthen the recall process?
Yeah, so KID writes an annual report analyzing children's product recalls, and we found that the CPSC and recalling companies aren't posting about recalled products on social media as much as they can. So they should post all recalls on their platforms, because many parents of young children use social media to find info about children's products. And recalling companies should also spend the same amount of resources publicizing the recall as they do on marketing the products in the first place, such as using paid social media ads to inform consumers about a recalled product. Recalling companies should also contact customers directly if they have their contact information. And this is particularly possible for connected products where you need to use an app on your phone to use the product, or products that require a subscription service.
Our last question is, how effective are recalls in getting unsafe toys out of the house?
Yeah, so only a small percentage of recalled children's products are removed from use, unfortunately. So parents may not hear about a recall or can't get through on the phone when they call the first time, so don't get back to it. So just as marketers know that consumers need more than one contact about a new product, consumers need information about recalls from a variety of platforms to be fully aware of the dangers and steps that need to be taken. That's why we're calling on the CPSC and recalling companies to do everything in their power to improve recall effectiveness.
Thank you, Dave. Now we will be moving into our question and answer section. See all the lovely faces pop up. Our first question is for Jennifer Gibbons. There's pending legislation in Congress, the INFORM Act. How would the INFORM Act help to protect consumers?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I did, mention that we've been working with lawmakers to pass better regulation of online marketplaces, and the Informed Consumers Act, as well as the Shop Safe Act, which are both pending in Congress right now, are two of the measures that would, we believe, be the right first steps to cracking down on counterfeits in the online marketplaces. Specific to informed consumers, it's going to require that the online marketplaces are collecting additional information for their third-party sellers, that they're verifying that that information is accurate, and then that they're disclosing some of this information to consumers. So consumers have a better idea of who they're buying from, and those sellers have been verified by the marketplace before they are able to even post products for sale.
Our second question is for Dr. Rose. If a child swallows something like magnets or a battery and has surgery, does that generally resolve the problem, or could there be long-lasting effects?
That's a great question. So, every case is a little bit different. For children where there may have been damage either to the esophagus or to the intestines from either a battery or a magnet, obviously the first step is to remove that right away. But unfortunately, some patients do, have injuries that will require them to be hospitalized for a while. It's healing. It may take some time for them to be able to start tolerating their normal diets again. So unfortunately, it's not always what we say a one and done. Some of these kids have long-term complications from this, which is really unfortunate. And that's why we just feel like it's so important to get this message out to families.
That is very unfortunate. Our third question is for Dave. If a toy is found to be dangerous, how long does it usually take to get it recalled?
Yeah, so there's no one quick answer to this. It just depends on the recall and also on the company. Typically, the CPSC will work with the company to get the recall out. And that's why we tell consumers it's so important to inform the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission if you've had an incident with the product, and you can report an incident to the CPSC at saferproducts.gov. And you should also inform the company that you've had an issue with that product as well.
Yeah, definitely both inform CPSC and the recalling company as well, or before the company recalls. Our other question is for Jennifer. Are toy shortages, are toy shortages this year giving rise to even more counterfeits?
Yeah, that is unfortunate. We do anticipate that the toy shortages we do expect to see a rise in counterfeit products. I mean, with the shortage, there's now an opportunity for bad actors to step in and, you know, sell these unsafe toys because the legitimate manufacturers can't get their products, you know, onto store shelves. You know, more consumers are going to go online. So really parents are going to have to be more vigilant than ever. You know, if you can't find the toy, you know, scour or, you know, trying to find it somewhere online, it may not be the best idea. You know, you really have to double check that stuff for safety.
And like you said earlier, counterfeiters could use faulty materials that a manufacturer can't get away with, so they won't be affected with that supply chain issue either.
Correct.
Our next question is for Dr. Rose. How can parents tell if their children might be getting harmed by something that doesn't show up on an X-ray, like lead or other toxic chemicals in knockoff toys?
Yeah, this is a great question. And unfortunately, I think that's a huge concern because these effects of lead toxicity or effects from other toxic chemicals can be pretty subtle, and you know, parents might not realize. I think if there is a high suspicion that a child has been exposed to lead from an unsafe product, then certainly physicians are able to check a lead level from the blood, but many times it can be really difficult to diagnose these cases. We know that lead toxicity and toxicity from other chemicals can have long-term effect even on the neurodevelopment of children. And, you know, unfortunately, these effects can be pretty subtle. So this is a huge concern and why we want to make sure that toys are safe for children to begin with to prevent any effects from happening.
Dave, do toxic chemicals like lead or phthalates get into knockoff toys because it's cheaper to make the toys that way, or because the counterfeiters just don't know any better?
Yeah, that's a good question, Hannah. I think typically people assume that that the toys, you know, that are made cheaply from overseas are the ones that contain toxic chemicals. But we've seen even toys that are, you know, relatively, you know, expensive and that are found in, you know, big box stores that contain high levels of chemicals. So as Dr. Rose mentioned too, it's hard to tell if a product has toxic chemicals in it without undergoing chemical tests, which parents, you know, really aren't able to do at home. But I don't know, maybe the other panelists might have something to add on that as well.
You know, I would just add, and it's something that I mentioned previously, but if someone is making a counterfeit knockoff fake toy, they are not taking the time to test their materials, to use the high quality materials, and to make sure that any levels of chemicals are meeting safety standards. So, you know, it creates this environment where you should just expect that a counterfeit toy is going to come with some sort of hazard for a child, because if someone's going to create a fake product, they certainly aren't spending the time and money to have it safety tested or designed with safety in mind.
Our final question for today is for Jennifer. Have counterfeits become more of a problem or less of a problem compared with, say, 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, that's the easiest question of the day. Definitely more of a problem. You know, it's unfortunate, but, you know, we do hope that we're going to see some action in Congress this year to better regulate those online marketplaces and reduce the amount of counterfeits out there.
Well, I wanted to say thank you to all of our attendees for joining in, and a special thanks to our panelists. To learn more about our 36th annual Trouble in Toyland report, please visit toysafetytips.org. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you so much.